Let's admit it, we've all been at that point in time where we discovered the magic of genies and the wondrous, limitless powers that they have, such as being able to transform and grant the wishes of those who rub the lamp in its own special way. We've also been at that point where we wish we could have our own way of making our wishes come true, some through the tradition of Disney's Aladdin, where only 3 can be granted, or maybe it through a magical quest of collecting a dragon's testicles, chanting his name, having only 1 wish granted, I repeat, only 1 wish granted, before the little trinkets used to summon this guy just vanish to the opposite ends of the earth, and you have to wait a whole year before you can summon him again. Or maybe you've experienced the power of a wish-granting entity through the power of a half-genie. And while full-fledged genies may have the power to grant the wishes of any person who wants their deepest desires realized, half-genies still have the power to transform into animals and cast other magical abilities. Case in point, Shantae, the belly-dancing genie girl from Scuttletown. Created by Erin Bell, the wife to series game creator Matt Bozon, Erin came up with the concept of a character who had dancing abilities and apparently named the character Shantae after one of the campers during counselor days. While she is the original mother to Shantae, as it were, Matt Bozon was the one to thank for fleshing out the mythology of the series. Apparently there's also these conflicting stories about how they came up with the idea on how Shantae attacked using her hair, one of which involved Matt's wife pelting him in the face with her 9 feet long hair at the time, fucking ouch, and whatever the case may be, Matt wanted to develop the games like Mega Man and Castlevania in gameplay design, while taking visual inspiration from anime such as Ranma Half and Pokemon. In fact, the subtitle of the most recent game, Half Genie Hero, is directly based on the title of Ranma Half. Gotta give it to the guy, at least he likes to leave a long-lasting appreciation for influence. Today, we're gonna take a look at the first game in the series that was released originally for the Game Boy Color, in 2002. The time of year where no one cared about the Game Boy Color, and instead, everyone's eyes were focused on the Game Boy Advance. Don't get me wrong though, when this game came out way back when, it got good reviews, and it was even good enough to get a re-release on the 3DS Virtual Console, which is the version I opted for in this review because you will never see me with a physical copy of the first Shantae with this much of a ridiculous asking price on the internet. Buyer beware indeed. But let's not judge a game by its asking price. After all, it is the first game in the series. I am expecting a lot of flaws, some pros and cons here and there, and I am expecting that the sequel that we'll look at next week to have some of the issues ironed out and to have some sort of improvement when we look at it next. For now, we're going to have to look at a game on the Game Boy Color at around the time that the Game Boy Advance was released. Let's take a look. For now, let's begin with this game's plot. Thousands of years ago, the world of Sequin Land was protected by beautiful, exclusively female guardian genies from monsters and mayhem. How's that for women's equality? They soon fell in love with mortal men, and eventually conceived to birth young genie girls with dormant genie powers sleeping inside of them. Thus, the half-genie was born. One day, these genies just suddenly vanished, and many of the half-genie girls decided that in order to protect their homes, they would guard individual countries from all evil. Enter Shantae, a 16-year-old belly-dancing genie girl who lives in the prosperous yet always burning Scuttletown. And believe me, this town gets wrecked a lot of the time. She is called to help by the mayor of Scuttletown as the evil but equally as beautiful Lady Pirate Risky Boots steals an invention from Shantae's soon-to-be canonical uncle Mimic, known as the steam engine. After laying a whiplash on Risky's ship and having an endless number of splinters and sticks stuck in Shantae's hair, Mimic explains that the steam engine he created was part of an innovative project to provide unlimited power to machines by using heat over a Bunsen burner of water to provide a limitless amount of steam that will automatically push the gears of, say, a robot or some other scientific experiment. However, in order for the steam engine to provide limitless power without needing to change out water or reheat fire, Risky requires 4 hidden elemental stones scattered across Sequin Land in order for the contraption to work. Along your journey, you will come across some of Shantae's friends who act as plot conveniences to get the ball rolling, and while they do admittedly have some good character traits and likable personalities, you only see them in that one town for that one mission. Then they never really show up again until the ending. Sure, you can always go back and talk to them whenever you want, but being a Metroidvania title, your time will be spent more looting through dungeons and discovering hidden secrets of Sequin Land's forgotten realms. The story is not something I particularly find all that engaging, for its quest is kind of basic in its simplest form when it mentions those MacGuffins that you gotta collect for the greater good. What I find interesting about it more than anything is just its setting and its premise. I think it's kind of cool how there's multiple half-genies that act as guardians to protect the world. While the characters may be underdeveloped and some designed to be sexually appealing, I think they have charm to them, and nothing about them sticks out as annoying or unpleasant. Although unpleasant does sort of come to mind with Roddy Tops on the brain, but more on that later. Shantae, like I said earlier, works like a Metroidvania. You have hub worlds to explore, dungeons for you to raid, power-ups to obtain either by circumstance or by curiosity, and you have a range of abilities and items that you can purchase at shops to upgrade your arsenal. Your standard attack is the hardest of head-banging hair whip. It's short, it's not that powerful, it's about as strong as heck can get, really. It does the job just fine. You can take out small fry with just one attack, but you'll find yourself backing away from stronger enemies a lot when taking them on. Items like storm puffs, chain balls, and fire can be purchased to help alleviate the issue of wailing on enemies, but try not to break that bank when purchasing these items, for they may be useful, but they will eat through your pocket money like a motherfucker. It's also kind of finicky how you have to activate these items, and this goes for all items. You have to hit up and the attack button in succession, and when it comes to enemies who have a tendency to jump around or launch attacks from afar, it's really tricky to execute. They are for the most part non-obtrusive, and if you're like me and want to traverse the land quicker, I suggest buying vanishing creams and potions quickly, because this game, outside of the fact that it wants to go Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest with its night and day system, has other glaring issues. There's also these additional attacks that you can buy in Watertown, and just don't. First, let's talk about the screen size of this game. I know that this is a game for the Game Boy Color, but this was not designed with that roadblock in mind. Because of the sprite size and the level layout of the game, as well as where the screen travels in addition to where Shantae stands, anytime you feel like you want to platform through these areas, you have to make constant leaps of faith and rash judgments as to where your position is parallel to how the stage is constructed. Because of how small the screen is, it's hard to tell whether leaping away from a wall or staying close to it can lead you to a bottomless pit or to an already spawned enemy that you can't see, and because of that, you have to constantly take things slowly. Instead of being comfortable, I have to always be on the safe side and hug the walls just to prevent myself from losing a life or getting hit by something I couldn't see either above or below me. It irritates me because anytime I'm in a new area where it's filled with enemies who have unavoidable long-ranged attacks, I can't perceive them in time for me to move out of the way. Therefore, I constantly have to stock up on Vanish Creams because anytime I'm not trying to play it safe, I want to get from point A to point B without having to deal with the enemies at night, which just escalates the difficulty even more, in addition to the screen size issue I was talking about. And yes, you heard me right earlier, this game has lives, in a friggin' Metroidvania of all games. And usually, I would be fine with that, if the game was designed to be consistent with that mechanic. But Metroidvanias require you to make mistakes and to travel outside of your comfort zone when taking on threatening enemies. This idea belongs in a platformer, and unfortunately, I don't think Shantae really knows what its focus wants to be, because it tries to implement these ideas that don't work. One of them is the animal transformations, and this is where the aforementioned dancing abilities come in. For when you enter a temple and come across an imprisoned genie, she will teach you a certain animal transformation that will help you solve the rest of the temple puzzles. Dancing requires you to input the correct sequence to the beat of the music, allowing you to change and use either the monkey to climb walls, the elephant to smash down rocks, the spider that can climb webs, and the background walls, and the harpy to fly. For the most part, these transformations are good for solving puzzles, and if you can find the individual attacks scattered across Sequin Land, you can power them up with some nifty abilities. The trouble with dancing is that it's always required to stop in order to do a transformation. And when that happens, you're playing stop and go a lot of the time. Stop to do a monkey dance to get over the wall. Stop to do a dance to transport yourself back to Scuttletown. Dance to earn all those gems at the dance parlor with varying levels of difficulty at your choice alone. You know what? I'm going to use my own transformation dance, and to make it even better, I'm going to use music from a recently re-released HD trilogy to help me stay on the beat. Enjoy! The other problem with this game is that for as much as it wants to be a Metroidvania, it also tries to be a platformer in these exclusive events that just bogs the game's progress to a crawl. For example, when you reach Roddy Tops, like the previous two times where you only needed to talk to Bolo and Sky so that they can help you point in the right direction and where you need to go, you are required to race her. What is the problem with this? The goddamn screen! Like I said the last time, the Game Boy Color is not designed with 2D races in mind with sprites this big. If it's a 3D racer, that at least makes sense. You can see 10 fucking feet in front of you. But here, where there's obstacles that are not indicated, hard to see, hard to react to, you will not win this race on the first go, and you will hate it. Integrating gameplay mechanics that don't even reflect the main gameplay design is never a good idea, because it just shows that you're trying to experiment with concepts that aren't taken into consideration when noting the system you're designing it for. A 2D racing game with sprite sizes like this should at least be widescreened so you can see where you're going, and if you can't do that, put in indicators like a signpost or a comedic special effect like jump or slide or something. This is just trial and error that relies on you to memorize everything, and for a Metroidvania that expects you to remember significant visual indicators like passages that can't be reached that needed a certain item or an animal transformation that requires you to reach, that at least makes sense. I at least have a drive to come back and explore the places I've yet to unearth. A stupid one-and-done wacky race that expects me to have the reflexes of an Attack of the Clones Yoda in the inside of God doesn't alleviate the stress, it enhances it. And you know what? This is the only time in the game where I felt genuinely angry. Sure, toward the end game, it's kind of cryptic in where you need to go, but you're expected to explore the land and solve mysteries anyway. The only problem is that it's boring. Honestly, the game's design in these temples is probably one of the highlights of the game. They're creative, they have distinctive secrets, passages, and gimmicks that not only test the player's intellect, but also rewards the player for their curiosity and wit. One of my favorite temples is the color switching mechanic, which causes enemies and treasure boxes to react to Shantae in certain ways, and I think the system cleverly uses the Game Boy's color limit to the game's advantage here. It's at times like this where I think I can comfortably control Shantae and properly assess the situation to platform and explore the place as I choose without having to run into scarecrows that pop out of the field or misjudge my faith jump into a bottomless pit. Even the boss fights managed to integrate the animal transformations well. In fact, I didn't die a single time using these guys, they were awesome. Eventually you'll reach Risky's hideout after finding a giant telescope in the sky, and with a boss fight against the Tinkerbot, which is honestly kind of pathetic for a robot, and a final battle against Risky Boots, the day is saved, Shantae destroys the steam engine and the journey ends. Before I wrap up, however, I'm going to talk about the animation and the music, two topics I will probably be bringing up the most when it comes to this series' evolution. The animation for the Game Boy Color is honestly very breathtaking. I couldn't believe there were these many frames and bits of animation put into it. Back in the days of ye olde Pokemon Gold and Silver, the most you could get for individual Pokemon was about 5 or 7 at best, but there's like 10 different frames of animation for Shantae and her dancing, hair whip, and 360 hovering. It's amazing! The artwork and visuals is equally as good. It has character, nothing looks the same, they're bursting with personality and charm. Man, does it got the booty for more reasons than one. The music is also not too bad, and it was actually done by Jake Kaufman, the guy who went on to work on the DuckTales remaster and Shovel Knight. Some of these pieces will go on to be remade and remixed in later installments, and while it is good, nothing really sticks out or has a lot of attaching value. You won't be humming it after you've had a listen to it. So with all that said and done, what do I think of Shantae for the Game Boy 3DS Color? It's alright. I don't know if I hate it per se, but it's not the go-to first entry I think of when someone asks me about which Shantae would be a good one for them to get into. If anything, it has a lot of aging problems the more and more I play it, and the midway stuff with finding the zombie caravan and racing ruddy tops, it's not all that fun. But I guess there's no harm in giving it a go if you're able to look past its dated design, yet charmingly cute, artsy look. And there you have it, that's the first game on the lineup, and those are my thoughts. Not great, not terrible, it's just perfectly adequate. But when we come back for another Shantae entry, we're going to take a look at Risky's Revenge. And Risky's Revenge, it has improved on some of the aspects, but I still don't think it's the best sequel that's come out. I mean, it improves, but I don't think it's great. It's just a little bit more better than mediocre. But what are my full thoughts on that? We'll just have to wait and see. Until then, take care of yourselves, have a good evening, and as always, stay awesome, lovely viewers. I'll see you all next time.